You've been told that Rome lost 3 legions in the Teutoburg Forest and mourned them as a tragic military defeat. But the truth carved in stone across the empire tells a different story. The 17th, 18th, and 19th legions weren't just destroyed in battle, they were systematically erased from official memory, their veterans denied pensions, their families stripped of legal protections, and their very existence scrubbed from monuments in a deliberate act of institutional forgetting that reveals how Rome treated catastrophic failure. Right now, if you walk through the archaeological museums in Rome, you'll find inscriptions honoring the 1st Legion, the 10th, the 20th, legions that fought in dozens of campaigns across centuries. But you will never find a monument to the 17th, 18th, or 19th. Not a single public inscription, not one dedication, not one veteran's tombstone proudly displaying those numbers. 3 entire military units, comprising 18,000 professional soldiers, simply vanished from the historical record as if they had never existed. And when you understand why Rome chose to erase them rather than honor their sacrifice, you'll understand something fundamental about how empires respond when the machinery of conquest breaks down catastrophically. Here's what we know for certain. In September of 9 CE, 3 Roman legions under the command of Publius Quinctilius Varus marched into the Teutoburg Forest in Germania. They were ambushed by Germanic tribes led by Arminius, a Roman-educated auxiliary commander who had spent years studying Roman tactics. Over 3 days of running battles in dense forest and marshland, the Germanic forces systematically destroyed all 3 legions. 18,000 soldiers killed, 6 cohorts of auxiliary troops annihilated. The legionary eagle standards captured, the ultimate military humiliation in Roman culture. Varus fell on his sword. The survivors were hunted down or enslaved. It was the worst Roman military disaster since Cannae 4 centuries earlier. But here's where the official narrative and the archaeological evidence diverge in disturbing ways. According to Tacitus and later Roman historians, Augustus mourned the lost legions, allegedly wandering his palace shouting, "Varus, give me back my legions." The story presents Teutoburg as a tragic defeat, honored in its telling. Yet the material evidence tells us something completely different happened. Rome didn't memorialize these legions. Rome erased them. Listen carefully to what the inscriptional record shows. Every Roman legion had a number and a name. The 3rd Augusta, the 6th Victrix, the 14th Gemina. These identities were sacred, passed down across centuries, recorded on everything from military diplomas to milestone markers to building inscriptions. When a legion was destroyed in battle, Rome honored it by retiring the number permanently or by reconstituting the unit with new recruits carrying the same proud designation. The 9th Hispana, possibly destroyed in Britain, was never reformed, but its existence was never denied. Inscriptions honoring its service survive across the empire. The 12th Fulminata, defeated by Parthians in 62 CE, was rebuilt and served for another 3 centuries. Even legions that mutinied or performed poorly were reconstituted rather than erased. But legions 17, 18, and 19, different treatment entirely. The legion numbers were never reused. No new units were formed to carry those designations. And critically, listen to this carefully, every single inscription that would have recorded their service, their battle honors, their veteran settlements, was either destroyed or never created in the first place. We know these legions existed because pre-Teutoburg documents mention them in passing. We know they recruited from specific regions. We know their commanders' names. But after 9 CE, institutional silence. Complete and absolute. Now here's what makes this erasure so deliberate and so revealing. Roman military bureaucracy was extraordinarily detailed. Legions maintained daily logs. Soldiers received regular documentation. Enlistment records, promotion certificates, discharge papers called diplomata that granted citizenship and marriage rights. These documents were filed in multiple copies, one with the unit, one in the provincial archive, one in Rome. Archaeological sites across the empire have yielded thousands of these military records. For legions 17, 18, and 19, none, not one diploma, not one promotion certificate, not one veteran's tombstone using those legion numbers. Read that absence again. 18,000 soldiers served in those units. They had families. They had service records spanning decades before Teutoburg. Where are their Preminus 9 CE military tombstones? Where are the inscriptions from their earlier campaigns in Germania and Pannonia? Where are the settlement records showing where veterans of these legions retired? The documents should exist. The bureaucratic machinery guaranteed their creation, yet they're gone, all of them. This is the part historians rarely discuss openly, though it's been noted in specialized German and Italian archaeological journals for decades. The erasure wasn't accidental, it was systematic. Someone made a decision, at the highest levels of Roman government, to remove these legions from official memory. And that decision extended beyond simply not reforming the units. It meant actively destroying or suppressing existing records, preventing veterans from using their legion numbers on private monuments, and ensuring that no public works would ever commemorate their service. Why? What could possibly justify erasing 18,000 soldiers who died in Rome's service? The answer appears in a single line from Suetonius, easily overlooked unless you understand Roman legal terminology. He writes that Augustus struck their names from the roll of legions. The phrase he uses, delet de legionem numero, isn't just military reorganization language, it's legal language. It means these legions were formally dissolved, their legal existence terminated, not as a battlefield casualty but as an administrative act. Here's what that legal termination actually meant. In Roman military law, a soldier's status, his pay, his land grants upon retirement, his family's legal protections, his citizenship rights, all derived from his membership in a recognized legion. When Rome formally deleted legions 17, 18, and 19 from the official rolls, everyone who had ever served in those units lost their legal status as Roman veterans. Their service was nullified. Their families' claims to benefits evaporated, the land grants promised upon retirement, gone, the citizenship extensions that covered their children, void, the pensions accumulated through 25 years of service, eliminated. Understand the machinery of what happened next. After Teutoburg, Roman authorities conducted what they called a recensus militum, a review of military rolls. Veterans of the destroyed legions, men who had survived previous campaigns and retired before 9 CE, were summoned to provincial offices to have their documents verified. The verification process should have been routine. You present your diploma, confirm your service, receive your benefits. Except for soldiers whose diplomata listed legions 17, 18, or 19, verification was denied. Their documents were declared invalid. Their service was disavowed. We know this happened because of tombstone evidence from Gallia Belgica and Germania Inferior. There are memorial inscriptions from this period, post-minus 9 CE but within a decade of Teutoburg, for soldiers who served in Germanic campaigns. Several of these stones show evidence of deliberate alteration. The legion number has been chiseled out and replaced with a different designation. These aren't errors or vandalism. The chisel work is professional, done by the same stone cutters who carved the original text. The alterations were official, and they reveal something chilling. Veterans were being forced to renounce their actual service and adopt false legion identities just to maintain their legal rights. Imagine being a 50-year-old veteran who had served 25 years in the 19th Legion. You retired in 5 CE, received your land grant in Gaul, started a farm, raised a family. Then Teutoburg happens. Suddenly Roman officials arrive and inform you that your legion never existed. Your diploma is invalid. Your land grant is being revoked. Unless, of course, you're willing to sign a document stating you actually served in the 20th Legion, which happened to be recruiting from the same regions at the same time. You'd have to falsify your entire service record. You'd have to dishonor every man you served with. But if you refuse, your family loses everything. The evidence strongly suggests this exact scenario played out across the western provinces. Germanic region veterans had to either accept the erasure of their actual service or lose their legal status. Most appear to have capitulated. The revised tombstones show that, but some refused. And we know what happened to them because of a fragment from Pomponius Mela, a 1st-century geographer who mentions in passing that after Teutoburg, certain veterans found themselves reduced to the status of peregrini, non-citizens, through administrative error. That phrase, administrative error, is doing enormous work. It's bureaucratic language concealing state violence. These men weren't accidentally stripped of citizenship. They were deliberately reduced to legal non-personhood because they wouldn't participate in Rome's institutional forgetting. Now consider what this meant for the families of men who actually died at Teutoburg. Roman soldiers paid into a burial fund throughout their service. If they died in battle, the fund paid for proper burial rites and provided a small death benefit to their families. But burial fund distribution required official confirmation of death, which required the legion to exist officially. For soldiers killed at Teutoburg, no such confirmation was possible. Their legions had been deleted from the roll. Legally, they had never served. Therefore, legally, they couldn't have died in Roman service. Their families received nothing. Read the letters of Pliny the Younger, written a century later. He mentions in passing that his grandfather, who served in Germania under Tiberius, who took command after Varus's death, witnessed great injustices done to the families of the fallen. Pliny doesn't elaborate, it's not the focus of his letter. But that fragment is significant. It confirms that people at the time understood what was happening, understood it was unjust, and also understood it was politically dangerous to discuss openly. The erasure extended even further. Roman military camps were permanent structures, elaborately built, often evolving into civilian settlements. Legionary fortresses contained temples, administrative buildings, parade grounds, all decorated with inscriptions honoring the units stationed there. After Teutoburg, Roman forces abandoned several camps in Germania. Standard procedure would have been to remove valuable materials, but leave the structures largely intact. Archaeological excavation of these sites reveals something different. The inscriptions were systematically destroyed. Not looted by Germanic tribes, the stone fragments remain on site, destroyed by Romans themselves before withdrawal. Every dedication mentioning legions 17, 18, or 19 was smashed, the fragments buried or scattered. At Haltern, a major Roman base that housed the 19th Legion before Teutoburg, excavators found hundreds of inscription fragments in a fill pit near the Principia, the headquarters building. The fragments had been intentionally broken, then used as rubble fill during the camp's final occupation phase, which dates to 10-12 CE, immediately after the disaster. Someone took official legion dedications, monuments that would have represented decades of accumulated history, and literally used them as garbage fill. That's not battlefield loss. That's deliberate destruction of memory. Here's the pattern that emerges when you trace this evidence across multiple sites and multiple sources. Rome didn't just lose 3 legions at Teutoburg. Rome decided that the existence of those legions was politically and ideologically unacceptable. Acknowledging their defeat would mean acknowledging catastrophic military failure. Worse, it would mean acknowledging that Roman military supremacy was a fiction, that Germanic tribes could completely annihilate professional Roman forces, that the empire's northern frontier was fundamentally unsecurable. Augustus couldn't afford that acknowledgement. He had spent 40 years consolidating power by presenting himself as the restorer of Roman dignity after the chaos of civil war. His entire political legitimacy rested on the image of Roman invincibility. Teutoburg shattered that image. So rather than mourn the defeat publicly and honor the fallen, Augustus made a different choice. He erased the defeat from official memory. He deleted the legions from the rolls, retroactively nullified their existence, and punished anyone who wouldn't cooperate with the erasure. The veteran whose tombstone was altered, he cooperated. The veteran reduced to peregrinous status, he didn't. The families denied burial benefits, they had no choice. The system didn't offer them one. This changes everything about how we understand Roman historical memory. We tend to think of Rome as obsessed with documentation, with preserving history through monuments and inscriptions and written records. And Rome was when the history supported imperial ideology. But when history contradicted that ideology, Rome had sophisticated machinery for suppression, legal mechanisms to strip status, bureaucratic processes to invalidate documents, physical destruction of monuments, and social pressure enforced through the very real threat of losing citizenship, property, legal protections to ensure compliance with official forgetting. The silence surrounding legions 17, 18, and 19 isn't mysterious. It's engineered, and it worked. For 2,000 years, the story of Teutoburg has been told as a tragic battlefield defeat, mourned by Augustus, avenged by later campaigns. The suffering of the veterans and families whose lives were destroyed by the legal and bureaucratic erasure that followed. That story didn't survive because Rome didn't want it to survive. You can see the same pattern in how Rome handled other catastrophic defeats. After Carrhae in 53 BCE, where Parthians destroyed Crassus's army, Rome acknowledged the defeat but shifted blame to Crassus personally. The legions were reconstituted. Their service was honored. After the Dacian Wars under Domitian, where Rome suffered massive casualties, the emperor held a triumph anyway and awarded himself victories. The legions were celebrated. Their standards were paraded. But after Teutoburg, erasure. The difference wasn't the scale of military loss. It was whether acknowledging the loss threatened imperial legitimacy. And here's what makes this relevant beyond Roman history. Every state, every empire, every government that bases its authority on claims of supremacy and invincibility faces the same choice when those claims are exposed as false. Acknowledge failure honestly, learn from it, adapt, or erase the failure, punish the victims, and enforce forgetting. Rome chose erasure. The veterans paid the price. The families paid the price. 18,000 dead soldiers were denied even the honor of being remembered. The definitive truth is this. The 17th, 18th, and 19th legions weren't erased by Germanic tribes. They were erased by Rome itself, through deliberate legal and bureaucratic mechanisms designed to protect imperial ideology at the expense of the soldiers who had served that empire faithfully. The absence of inscriptions, the destroyed monuments, the altered tombstones, the nullified service records, none of this is mystery. It's evidence of systematic institutional forgetting, implemented at the highest levels of government and enforced through the threat of legal annihilation for anyone who refused to cooperate. The machinery of erasure is always more mundane than we want to believe. It's bureaucrats reviewing documents and declaring them invalid. It's stonecutters chiseling out legion numbers and replacing them with acceptable alternatives. It's archives quietly losing records that contradict official narratives. It's families forced to choose between truth and survival, and choosing survival because the alternative is legal oblivion. Rome tried to erase 3 legions. The absence of their memory is proof they succeeded. But the pattern of that absence, the precise ways records were destroyed, documents invalidated, monuments defaced, that pattern is evidence. And evidence, if you're willing to read it carefully, refuses to be silenced forever. If you've learned something from this investigation into how empires enforce forgetting, hit that subscribe button on Mythbusting, because we're going to keep uncovering the stories that states worked hardest to bury. The question isn't whether powerful institutions erase uncomfortable truths. The question is whether we're willing to reconstruct those truths from the fragments they couldn't fully destroy. What other historical erasure should we investigate? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.